shared their beautiful work tonight. I guess I should talk into the microphone, huh?
You can move it over if you want to.
So this story is called Regina. And I'll just go right into it. Okay. God only knew where she got it. But after about a month of not being able to get a hold of Wade on the phone, Regina drove a foot-high metal fence post, a phallic-looking one with a hole through its tip, into the patch of grass near the street in front of his house and chained herself to it. She had thought about writing his name in black cherry lipstick across her chest and hanging herself from a kente headscarf in the closet, but that would only make his lips twitch with that big-eyed "who me?" smile that she couldn't stand, so she decided instead to be there in front of his house when he got what was coming to him. His street was long and gray and lined with brick two-family houses that didn't seem to have many families in them. Some had maroon corrugated awnings, and some had thin little white curtains that hung stiffly in the windows and looked like butcher paper, and others had fading graffiti marks on their faces. The way black wires stuck out from the telephone poles made Regina think of crucifixions. Instead of leading straight down from the door to the sidewalk like a normal stoop, Wade's steps were horizontal and led up to a narrow, railed-in patio. The house looked like it was leaning on a red elbow. The first time Wade saw her there, he didn't notice the heavy chain linked to a smaller chain that she put around her waist like a belt. To be fair, a lot of her best belts were chain-like. He said her name, and she turned her back to him so that all he saw was a brown boulder in a cropped shirt. In a minute, his shadow was gone. He didn't come back home until close to 7. He walked right past her and up his steps. It got chilly when the sun went down, so Regina freed herself at 9, went home to Brooklyn, and drove back to Corona in the morning at 6. This time she brought a pillow to sit on, borrowed from one of the uncomfortable metal chairs in her mother's backyard, a book, sketchbook, notebook and pen, chicken and vegetables in square Tupperwares with blue plastic lids, fruit, nuts, and cool ginger tea. The ginkgo tree that stood at the halfway point of the strip of grass she had colonized made a good backrest, and when a car parked at the curb, she had cover for the time she needed to pee into a mason jar. There was a sewer grate set into the street just a few feet downhill from her. She kept enough water on hand that the streams she sent down to the grate were barely yellow. Water was good for the baby. Wade came and went. When his front door opened every morning, usually between 10 and 12 noon, she turned her back to it. When it was his black car parked a few inches from her, she waited until he walked around to the driver's side door and rotated 180 degrees on her pillow so that her back was turned that way. He never said anything more than her name and never tried to touch her. From time to time, she caught glimpses of his face in her peripheral vision, and every time he was laughing. She got fired from her job. She assumed so anyway. She didn't listen to the message they sent. "You've been working a lot," Regina's mother said on the 4th night of the vigil, and Regina said, "Yeah." "Why do you sit there?" a neighborhood girl with woolly red hair and a face like a dried apricot asked her one Saturday. Regina said, "You'll understand when you're older." In the meantime, Regina's presence on the block for the 6th day in a row, and technical, if questionable status as a grown-up, pipelined her into a resented role as referee, scorekeeper, and moderator for the kids' games, which seemed endless because the sun was so slow to set. "You saw that," a boy hollered at her more than once over the course of the weekend, a subpoena to children's court, and she yelled back, "I'm not watching, I don't care," and he screamed, "Just tell them what you saw." The ones who weren't old enough for the games especially liked hovering near her with wet hands and checkerboard teeth. They trailed up from the fading houses down the block, tried to touch her hair, and seemed to always be peeling furred lollipops off their clothes to stick back into their mouths. Their heads smelled like old sweat and their bodies like milk. On Sunday, the fat ones still in diapers tried to sit in her lap. By the 3rd week, the chains started to seem like melodrama. Regina left it at home for a day, but woke up in the middle of the night in a panic that it was exactly that wavering that Wade was waiting for. Underestimating him was why she was in this mess to begin with. In the morning, she fed the chain through the hole in the fence post like normal. She would not be caught slipping, but she did move her morning start time from 6 to 7. 3 days into the new schedule, Wade brought a girl home with him. He parked at the curb, and even though she turned her back, Regina heard him say, "Watch out when you're opening your door. A crazy lady likes to sit there." Regina felt the girl's horror all over her back and kept her head down when the girl was walking with Wade to the red steps. She hunched so that her hair hid her, hopefully made her look older, and she rocked a little, the way dirty women who sat places did. The girl squeezed Wade's hands, and Regina could practically smell how proud she was of the handsome, soft-hearted man who didn't mind an old crazy lady pissing and shitting and doing God knows what else near his car. The girls spent the night. Regina never saw her again after that. 4 weeks, 4.5, 5. She didn't get much to go on, but if anything, Wade's trips to and from his car seemed to get jauntier by the day. He breezed by her in shower-fresh clouds and never coughed, sneezed, or sniffled. Every night he returned home, it was with all 4 limbs, and in the mornings his car always started right up. Thanks to a neighborhood kid called Black who never missed a day, Wade's grass was a luxurious emerald pelt, and his shrubs looked like rich people's Christmas trees, and the flowers were shining chunks of rainbow. Regina sat anyway. "Look at this," Wooly, who liked to say she was 9 10/12, ordered one afternoon. She stuck a piece of paper in Regina's face. "A 95, that's excellent." "I didn't study," Wooly bragged. "Why didn't you study? You could have gotten 100. "I got a 95, who gives a fuck," said Wooly. Summer arrived, touched off by one ordeal of a Wednesday when the kids from the block crowded around Regina with their report cards. They were eager to be congratulated for their surprisingly good grades and to reward themselves with food from Regina's bag, loose change from her wallet, and on Wooly's part, lipsticks from her makeup case. Timing that had seemed like such a blessing weather-wise curdled into the worst possible luck. School was out. "Do you all go to day camps or something?" Regina asked, and at least 3 pairs of lizard eyes slid to her in galled unison. "Do you have a job or something?" an older one asked, mocking her retail voice. And Regina understood far too late that 1, she was outnumbered, 2, she was chained to a fence post in the ground, and 3, she had been wrong in crediting the children's bonhomie to date towards anything other than their choice. But by the next day, they were as warm towards her as they usually were, which is to say sort of, and Regina was glad that they'd either forgotten or forgiven the insult. "Let's talk," Wade said on a gray day at the beginning of July. He was standing in his front doorway and holding the screen door open for her. Regina thought. There was nothing she needed to hear him say. But curiosity lured her fingers to dial the combination on the metal lock she bought at Modell's, stash her bag under the car where she could die for it if necessary, and walk stinging legs up the stairs where he was waiting. He pushed her along by her tailbone through a living room cluttered with old brown furniture. Unlike the girl from a few weeks ago, Regina had never been inside his house before. Considering that Wade ironed his jeans and got all of his Black Power t-shirts dry cleaned, it surprised Regina that his house looked like a secondhand store, as if Wade had already gotten started on living like a forgotten grandpa. In the back kitchen, he sat her in a chair and pushed a mug at her. A string and white tab hung over its chipped edge like a dog's tongue. Chamomile. She cupped her hands over the steam. The teas she drank outside were always, at best, lukewarm. "How long are you going to do this?" Wade asked. "I haven't thought that far." "What do you need exactly?" he asked. "Do I owe you an apology?" "I don't care what you did," Regina said. "I just need to see that they saw what you did, and you won't get away with it." She indicated the ceiling, the people upstairs. "But that could take years." "We'll see," Regina said. Wade sat in a black vinyl chair, the fraternal twin to her red one, and looked thoughtful. There was no evidence on his face of any loss of sleep. He kept his dreadlocks so neat and smoothly twisted that they looked fake, and a few tiny red gold hairs poked out of his otherwise black and glowing beard. She could smell the laundry detergent on his shirt, and under that, a cocoa mango oil she knew he bought from men on the street and rubbed into his armpits and chest hair. She used to want to live in his armpit, but today the oil had an off-key ring to it, as if it was starting to go bad in its blue glass vial, and she didn't know what was worse, smelling it or getting it into her mouth. "I like your hair," Wade said. It was a new wig, synthetic silk, strawberry blonde with big curls. Wooly had liked it too. Regina had argued with her about it. No, she was not going to let a scabby 52-inch person wear her 26-inch wig, and Wooly had said, "Fuck you," with overbright eyes and run away. "You're too pretty for this," Wade said. He touched her cheek with his hand. "Look at you." Her hand met his on her cheek and held it there, and she could feel every irregularity of the hot lines in his palm. That her skin had more gold in it and was much softer than his made her feel delicate and feminine. His thumb found her bottom lip and pushed. Her tongue touched a callus on its tip and tasted salt. Wayne pulled her up and turned her. His hand left her face and reappeared under the shirt and bra, and he pressed his face into her back and made wanting noises. His other fingers worked like a spider to gather the long, long length of her skirt up into his fist. It'd been skirts since May, because anything else was impractical for peeing into the mason jar. He undid his own buttons, and once inside her, gripped the wide, meaty hips he used to tease her about once she was too tall, not Amazon goddess tall anymore. Once he was occasionally concerned that the hips were a one cheeseburger from potential future liability. Once her brick shithouse had sometimes started looking to him like a colored schoolroom. His breath on her shoulder kept her there and moved her to separate her feet a bit to help him. Who could begrudge her 60 seconds of warm hands? What was one more fucking in the grand scheme of things? Are you still pregnant? Regina froze, and behind her, sensing that a gate was about to slam down, Wade hurried. When he was gone from her body, a thin gruel left her too. His army wouldn't desert him. She thought of that last night when he'd stared into her eyes like she was a gold-plated unicorn and told her that he wanted it official, even if there wasn't a baby. She played it cool, even though inside she was melty, and asked, "It's not too soon?" They'd only met 2 months before. She thought she'd been playing the game, winning even. She was 26 to his 44. Didn't that mean that at some point, somewhere, she'd been in the game? Had she really lost at hello? "You know I don't want it," Wade said. 60-some-odd chain days later, it was more disclaimer than news. What he didn't say, but what was in his now clear eyes, was an icy slap where his hand had just been hot. "But since you're here..." Outside, Regina knelt in the grass patch and swiped her arm under Wade's car for her bag and pillow. She put the pillow in its spot by the base of the tree, sat on it, and put her chain on. Wade came outside 20 minutes later, washed clean and in fresh clothes. She didn't turn away from him. He looked at her chain, smiled, and on the way to his car, affectionately ruffled her wig. When he was gone, the empty space at the curb was 10 stories high, and all Regina wanted was to let herself fall off it and shatter for good. Or to be able to go back to her job at the store with its warehouse lights, its rubbery, cheerful smell of artificial newness, and mannequins with no faces. She sat and waited, but the weak wind blowing down the street did not tip her into the gutter to break. She closed her eyes and was not glass anymore, but white linen, with a tiny licking flame at her toe, and the higher the fire crept, leaving fragile, crumbling black behind it, the more she was aware of the white cloth metal it was inching to destroy. "I'm not mad," Woolley said. Regina had not noticed her appear. "Oh," Regina said, "well, good." "Look." Regina looked. Woolley was wearing the black cherry lipstick she liberated from Regina on report card day. It was too dark for her, and while not terribly applied, garish under Woolley's small eyes and miniature piglet nose. "Very good," Regina said. Woolley sat near her. A slow minute passed. Woolley finally caved in a bitter, pleading rush. "Can I just look at your makeup? I won't take anything." Regina wanted to say, "Take it all." She still sat like a child, Regina noticed after a long while of quiet, tiny butt on the gray pavement between turned-out feet, no strain whatsoever in gummy worm knees, chin to chest and mouth parted with single-minded focus, while she pried apart black pots to see the colors inside. She was a bony little thing with a rainbow on the front of a dingy white t-shirt, and her hair stuffed lumpily into a puff at the back of her head. Regina did not need x-ray vision to know there was matting in those lumps. "Your mother works, huh?" Regina said. "We don't have mothers," Woolley said. She stuck her finger into the pink gold glitter and smeared some on each of her eyelids. It suited her much better than the lipstick. "Who's we?" "All of us," Woolley said, like Regina was dense. "This is that street," Regina moaned. Rumors had wafted for years, even as far out as Brooklyn. It took an hour to coax Woolley from I-do-it-myself defensiveness to silver tears. "It's gonna hurt," Woolley wept, angrily scouring her eyes before any of the boys from the block could see, and Regina said, "No, it's not. It's hurt. It's because you don't know how to do it." Together they walked to the CVS 2 avenues over for combs, a hairdryer, oils, and creams, and Woolley, misery face, dragged her feet until Regina picked out a purple headband with a silky green flower on it. "You just watch," Regina said, and on their way back to the block so Regina could put her chain back on, Woolley skipped. The grass patch was not conducive to a hair appointment. Before long, Regina moved her equipment and Woolley to Wade's steps. Fuck it, she thought. Let him come home and walk around us. Woolley sat with her spine sentinel straight and flinched at even the gentlest touches until 10, 20, and 30 minutes passed with, as promised, no pain. "No mothers, no fathers," Woolley confirmed, lording over Regina's makeup while Regina separated her wet and oiled hair and pinned it up into sections. "They leave," Woolley said. "Why?" "Because we make them." "Who's we?" "Wade," Woolley said. "Why does Wade make them leave?" Because he's in charge, Willie said. Because she stopped like she wanted to make sure to get her pledge right. Because no parents is better than perverts and whores. Regina thought of the little boys with rotten pomegranate mouths. He doesn't let other grown-ups come here either, Willie said. They cannot move here. Why? So they can't do rape, Willie said with confidence. Has someone done rape to you? Regina asked. No, Willie said. There's no adults. She sounded confused. It took hours, one labor-intensive borrowing of the heavy hose at the side of Wade's house and 2 trips to the curb to send piles of sudsy white water into the sewer grate. By sundown, Willie's hair was clean, dried, parted, braided, and smelled like peaches, and Willie had told her everything. When someone got to be grown, like 12 or 13, they had to go, even if they hadn't had a baby yet, and especially if they had. Wade made them go be perverts and whores somewhere else, like Jamaica or something, and kept the babies. When you got to be 10, Wade gave you money to share with the others for food and clothes and stuff. Everybody helped. And you had to go to school every day, and you had to get at least a 90 on all your tests. After 90, who gives a fuck, Wade said. But if you didn't get a 90, he might shoot you. Nobody messed with any kids from the street, not teachers, not anybody, because Wade would shoot them. Wade was from the street too. He kicked all the perverts and whores out. He shot some too. When did Wade kick everyone out? Regina asked. When he was 13, Willie said. A hint of chant in it made Regina wonder if there was a longer song. She had the strangest colored hair Regina had ever seen, burnt amber with lines of ashy honey wound through it. With the headband finally crowned into place, Willie leapt off the steps with Regina's compact to see. The sun was just about gone, and having her reflection darken to a shadow frustrated Willie so badly that it looked like she might cry again or punch someone. But Regina pointed out the street lamp near the end of the block, and Willie ran there, saw herself, and danced under the light with the mirror in her hand. Regina watched her and thought about everything Willie had told her, and thought.